Hey, how you doing? This is at least 150 things you missed in Death Stranding, the director's cut. So, we've talked a heck of a lot about Cyberpunk on this channel, and we will do again soon. But I want to talk about some other games and just how special they are, for example, Death Stranding. Specifically, the director's cut, which some of this content I'm about to talk about was added into. This is an incredible experience that I just cannot recommend enough. In fact, after having spent hundreds of hours in the game myself, I feel safe in recommending this to you. So if you haven't played it, stop watching this video now, but promise me you will come back to it in the future when you have completed it to see what you might have missed at that point. Because obviously this is going to be full of spoilers because it's one of those kinds of videos. However, it does have a different pace, which takes a moment or two to get used to compared to other games. One of the rare games that truly innovates and tries something new, but also tells an absolutely incredible story, which by the end of the game makes full sense. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about all the incredible references, Easter eggs, and things you missed or will miss if you're gonna play it and come back and watch this later in Death Stranding.
Can you hear me? Steady.
Just to kick things off in a familiar headspace for my returning viewers, I want to start off with the Cyberpunk 2077 Easter eggs, or storyline actually, that's in the game. Whilst I previously aired my issues with the bridge baby just being placed in Cyberpunk 2077 with no real rhyme or reason or attempt to tie it into the game, at least that I ever found, I really appreciate the care and attention to detail with how the Cyberpunk Easter eggs were sewn into the Death Stranding universe. Much more integral to the game than the bridge baby, kind of like how the Balatro Easter egg felt like it was actually part of the Cyberpunk world, the way it was introduced as a quest, not just a promotional item plunked somewhere for you to find. And I can think of a great many ways they could have actually integrated that bridge baby, but you can make your own headcanon around it. Either way, the way that Kojima did this, I thought was absolutely brilliant. Let's look into it. What you have here is an entire quest line. You are asked to retrieve a chip, and if you are a Cyberpunk fan like I am, you're going to instantly recognize this chip. That's right, this is the relic, except for the fact this one has a V on it. And the person you communicate the whole time with is Jackie Wells. How is that possible? Well, without spoiling any specifics from Cyberpunk itself, it makes a lot of sense once you know Jackie Wells' story, and combined with your understanding of the beaches and the chiral network and multiverses, it's a pretty feasible thing that he would somehow appear as an entity in the world of Death Stranding. And that's exactly what's happened with Jackie Wells here. A lot of people thought it was Johnny, but it's absolutely Jackie. You just have to look at the tone of his words and phraseology. And throughout the game, he is going to send you off looking to collect one of these chips. And when he does, you're going to get rewards. You get upgrades to your interface, which is very cyberpunky. It lets you hack things and make your life easier. For example, your compass can disable guard posts. And you can also disable enemy vehicles, very much like a Netrunner from Cyberpunk. But you also, and this is the fun part, you get items. You get iconic face cyberware, just like what V has in Cyberpunk 2077, and I ended up using that throughout my entire playthrough because it just looks awesome as well on Sam. You also get, and this is particularly cool, Johnny Silverhand's arm. This arm is especially cool because it helps you with climbing ladders and rocks. It also gives you one heck of a punch. So yeah, it's more than just a cosmetic, this is a functional item. You also get Johnny Silverhand's glasses. I'm a real water boy. And you get the Iba Kusanagi bike. Or in this case, it's a reverse trike, but it's got the exact same livery as the bike from Cyberpunk 2077, which we know is in itself an Easter egg of the Akira bike, and also named after Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. So it's pretty iconic in Cyberpunk, and it's pretty iconic here. And I think that's really awesome. What's more, you also get a couple of holograms. You get a hologram of Jackie himself, which you can put at any of the structures you built, and you get a really nice hologram of a Trauma Team AV. It's very similar to the little model you get in your apartment from completing the Trauma Team game in Cyberpunk, except this is just a hologram, not a physical model. Really cool, I think. You also get, which is quite interesting, the creator hologram, which is Hideo Kojima's character from Cyberpunk. So it's a little additional bonus connecting the two things there. But my favorite thing is the entire story. Through this whole time, Jackie doesn't quite know what's gone on, what he's doing here, or how he's here, or how inexplicably the V relic chips are there. But either way, with each chip you bring him, it helps him to join the dots, and eventually he understands what's happened and he comes to a realization thanks to you helping him out, which is pretty cool. It's really quite awesome. If you know what happened to Jackie in Cyberpunk, well then kind of got to feel like we were getting to spend a bit more time with the Jackster. And I think it's a really clever way of adding an Easter egg or two. Speaking of clever ways of adding Easter eggs, let's talk about the Half-Life integration here. And just to be clear, this is a celebration of the Easter eggs in the game, not a how-to. So if you want to find a guide on how to find these kind of things, there's plenty of very well documented guides and videos out there. I don't need to reinvent the wheel for that. If you want to go and check those guides, or even better still, hunt these things down yourself and get the enjoyment out of that, well, that's also cool. Now, where was I? Oh yeah. Again, this is another extremely plausible way to add a series of Easter eggs into a game and show your love for another franchise. This time, various characters in the world that we meet along the way contact us after a certain point in time, and they send us an email requesting that we go and find a cube. They all proclaim to be Half-Life fans and Portal fans, and they act like they've found out somehow that we are a Portal fan. It's a good shake that if you're a gamer who's been around a while, you've played Half-Life or Portal, and you're a fan of the series. So I personally didn't think twice about the fact that that was the assumption here, that they knew the player would be. And Sam Bridges as a character also liked Half-Life. He doesn't actually say anything to the contrary, so we just have to go with it. So throughout the game, again, we go and collect companion cubes, like with the Cyberpunk one, where you're collecting the memory sticks or the memory chips that are shaped like the relic. Here we're collecting companion cubes. But this time there's an awesome twist. To start with, just to let you know, these are the things you get. Firstly, you get a valve, which you can wear in place of Sam's ponytail. I'm not a big fan of Sam's ponytail, so it's a pretty awesome addition. Also, we get the gravity gloves. We know gravity gloves, or it was a gravity gun initially in Half-Life 2, and Alex, which I haven't been able to play, she has gravity gloves, so this is from Half-Life Alex. Hopefully there's some truth to the rumors in Half-Life 3 actually being in development, and I will get back into that world and be blown away by Valve's offering once more before I die. Anyway, I digress. You get the gravity gloves, which are really useful as far as things go, in that you can pick up objects from a distance. They just drain your battery a little, but it's no biggie. Really, really handy, and they become an absolute must-wear essential. The next thing you get are Gordon's glasses. Fairly straightforward. These are just the glasses that Gordon Freeman wears in Half-Life 1, 2, and episodes. In addition to the glasses, you get a van which is colored yellow and has the Lambda logo on it from Half-Life. It also has a little valve stuck out of it, and it just felt great driving this one around with the bright yellow in contrast to the muted landscapes around you. Just like with the Kusanagi bike, this was really nice to have, and it was very functional, and it fit into the world nicely. Additionally, we also have this head crab. Now this head crab is fun. It has some physical effects. It restores your stamina but also drains your blood. It's kind of gross. It's kind of cool at the same time. I love the description of the head crab cap. Beyond explaining its functionality, it goes on to clarify how safe it is for anybody that might be concerned knowing what head crabs actually do in Half-Life. It says, please rest assured the cap is not poisonous, and there is no danger of the creature taking control of the wearer's body, because we know that's exactly what head crabs do. So rest assured, you can use it just fine, and it won't bleed you to death. You'll only use your blood to replace your stamina if you've got enough blood to spare. Now, here is the really fun bit. There's one more thing you can get. You can get a Strider hologram, which is really tall, just like the tall neck, and you get this by completing the end of the story. And this is where the real twist comes in. So the entire time you're being contacted by the different people, for example, Benjamin Hancock, William Lake, or the paleontologist, asking you to go and collect these things, these companion cubes. And you don't think too much of it. Some of the wording is funny in their emails, though. They're often talking about you in a way that they couldn't possibly know you, and constantly referring to experiments and the urgency of finding these cubes. For example, in Thomas Sutherland's email here where he mentions the experiments. At the end, we get contacted from one of the very first people, Benjamin Johnson, who explains to you that all the emails you've been receiving have been from an imposter. Their servers were hacked and there's not even any records of these cubes that you've been delivering. And if you look back when you actually make the cube deliveries, they don't really acknowledge it in the same way as they do other deliveries, but you still get your rewards.
Back, are you? You're trying to put the rest of us to shame. Fine by me. Oh, before I forget, this is for you.
So it looks like this imposter has completely infiltrated the system and been getting you to collect the cubes. You also receive a letter from, did I just say letter? Obviously email, from Unknown, who is the true sender of the emails from the other people, thanking you for collecting the cubes and asking you to get one more. Benjamin conversely tasks you to incinerate that cube. He also mentions about how throwing it into the tar sends it to another world, which is interesting because in one of William Lake's earlier emails, or the imposter pretending to be William Lake, he talks about how a lake was formed at ground zero and has a valve at the bottom of it. It's all linked by way of an explosion, the explosion that fractured GLaDOS. And that's right, the person that's been contacting us and talking about experiments and being so happy to get the experiments up and running again is GLaDOS. After her destruction in the Portal games, she, via beaches or chiral networks, I guess AIs can also have their own beach, managed to find a way to this world. I think it's super cool. Anyway, like I said, trying to throw it into the tar didn't do anything. You have to incinerate the cube and that ends things and we save the day. We get an email from Benjamin thanking us, and I think it's safe to say we have saved the day because GLaDOS even thanks us for banishing her from our world and returning her to her original world. So by disposing of that final cube, we helped her cat to return home, avoiding potential catastrophic damage that revisiting the experiments in this, well, dimension would have caused. So pretty cool. Oh yeah, and before I forget, both Half-Life and Cyberpunk 2077 have their own signposts you can put up as well. They don't do anything, but they look pretty cool. And something you might not have known is that different signs give different buffs, like restoring stamina and things like that. So if you leave them out, they can actually actively help other players. Conversely to the Half-Life and Cyberpunk 2077 Easter egg integrations, just to take a complete leap in the other direction, quite a blatant one this one, and that's the Ride with Norman Reedus product placement. Firstly, the bike is the Ride with Norman Reedus reverse trike. Now, this one doesn't come to you by way of quests coming through emails or deliveries. You get this one from finding a specific memory chip. It's number 31. That chip is located slightly north and west of Mama's lab across the river, south of the mule encampments there. Again, there's plenty of guides online that will show you very quickly where to find these things. And when you deliver it to Mama, you'll get the reverse trike with the Ride branding on it. It's a unique reverse trike that combines aspects of the long range and the defensive reverse trikes. So it has an additional onboard battery and an electromagnetic shield unit. And it says this unique model has been designed to appeal to bikers everywhere. Hop on and feel the adrenaline rush. When you jump on it, Sam will yell things like, "I feel so effing cool right now. I feel like I'm on Ride with Norman Reedus." And for anyone unfamiliar like I was, Ride with Norman Reedus is basically a travel documentary TV series where Norman Reedus, who plays Sam, and a celebrity guest go on bikey rides across cities and stuff, I guess. You know, just in case we needed any more reminding that Norman Reedus plays Sam, you know, just to shatter that fourth wall over and over again. While we're on the subject, something which is a lot more egregious is the advert you get on the combi shower and toilet when you're dropping a deuce. Why are there even advertisements on this private room that Sam only has access to? It makes no sense. Compared to the collector prepper, where they have some really good integrations of modern day culture, which I'll talk about in a minute, this one is just blatant advertising. I don't know. It is what it is, and it's there. You know, you can get JF Ray sunglasses from the film director. There's probably some specific reason why you've got JF Ray. I didn't even know the brand before this game. I just thought it was made up for the game, but it's actually a real brand, it seems. Oh. Yeah, I guess it's just marketing then, and they've successfully marketed to me. Alright, well there you go, it's an advert. One of the things in the original game you probably saw, sponsorship I'd imagine, was a Monster energy drink sponsorship. In Director's Cut that was replaced with Bridges energy. Sam needs a lot of energy drink through this game, it's like his super fuel. just on the Monster Bridges Energy swap out in Director's Cut. An interesting thing about Bridges Energy, when you look at the description of it, it says the canteen has also been treated with antifreeze technology. Now, there have been occasions where antifreeze has been found in drinkable substances, essentially poison, and it reminds me of a Simpsons episode where there's a foreign exchange program and Bart goes to work on a vineyard in France. Now, antifreeze is highly toxic, so you have to be very careful with it. So yeah, I don't think for a second that they mean the antifreeze technology means it's actually got antifreeze in it. I think it's obviously just the way that the canteen works.
I'm good for now.
But what is very interesting is if you look at it, it has a very bright green glow. I don't know. Anyways, just something I noticed. I thought it was interesting. At one point, you will meet timeful farmers, and if you progress their star level enough by doing deliveries for them, you will get access to a porter, Yodi-style brew that they have created and will be delivered to your private room instead of the energy drink. A porter is a kind of a dark beer, basically. Now, this is really fun because it has another Easter egg that if you haven't tried to drink all the beers, you won't know about. There's actually a couple of Easter eggs. So after the first 2 beers, Sam doesn't feel like much more, and he will start squirting the cans at the camera instead of drinking them.
Right in the face.
And that's fun. But later on in the game, or I don't know specifically what triggered it, but I saw it later on in the game, there is another very easily missed animation. Sam will keep on drinking. And yeah, watch what happens. He absolutely wrecks the joint. And this is very interesting because after this, the timeful porter will be completely gone from the private room and you'll be back to the energy drink. So maybe he was like, that's it, I've had enough, I've gone too far, I will never drink a drop again. And, you know, you're back to the energy drink. There's a lot of other things in the room which we will go over later as well.
All topped up.
Sam's biggest superpower is not his dooms, not his ability to repatriate, but his ability to hold fluid.
The bladder's about to burst.
Most average bladders can hold about 600 milliliters. The high end would be 800. Sam can carry an entire liter for ages without exploding. That's a superpower right there. And interestingly enough, connected to this, if Sam is very dirty or he really needs to go to the toilet, he will let you know. Look here how he begs to use the facilities in the private room. But to have such control over somebody's life is quite a trip, really. Hey, if you're enjoying this, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe if you'd like to be kept notified of future videos. And if you are new here, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for taking a chance on my video. I hope you're enjoying it and you'll stick around to check out some of my other videos after this one. And while you're here, I'm trying to decide which game I'm going to cover next in the same way. If there are any other games you would like me to do a massive things you missed video on, let me know down below. I've got a few things that I like to do, but really I want to see what you would like to see most next. Anyway, let's get back to it. Next up, I want to talk about a couple of preppers that give the game some much needed chronological context, starting with the Elder. The Elder is one of the very first preppers you meet in the central region. A cantankerous old man, he has no love for bridges or the UCA. A few interesting things about the Elder are he ages the time and place of the game as being in our timeline or universe and in our future. And you can work out specifically when, give or take. Probably the oldest character in the game that you meet, he was born before the Death Stranding and south of the border wall in the United States. He describes how he migrated to the US at some point prior to the Death Stranding as a child, which ages the game timeline pretty accurately. He references how people elected somebody that was all about building a wall. So if he was a child prior to it, and he's probably about 80 now, we're probably close to the turn of the 22nd century. Definitely the late 21st century is when this game is probably set. To me, he looks like he could be in his 70s for sure. His whole shtick is that, you know, the whole thing about countries and borders is generally bullshit. But yeah, he's hiding away in the shelter up here. What's really interesting about him though, you'll notice that a lot of the deliveries you're bringing him are sleeping pills and medical supplies, things like that. But you also bring him some very urgent deliveries later on in the game. Once you've gotten him up to 5 stars, one of the deliveries is a pacemaker. And if you don't bring him that delivery in time, well, the next time you actually make any delivery, you'll notice that he's no longer there. Instead, you're greeted with a BT, or at least a hologram of a BT. So yeah, you can, by choice or accident, kill the Elder. And I think that's fascinating. He does send you one last email saying, "So long, Sam," and saying how he's kind of, been done enough and he's just going to stop taking his medication. So perhaps without the medication, the pacemaker was needed. It's not really explained. Like the Elder, a few other things in the game cement this game in our own universe or our own timeline, and along with the 50 collectible memory chips around the place, which I'm not going to cover in this video because there's plenty of guides out there if you're struggling to find any of them, and they will be much quicker and to the point than this. One of the easily missed preppers, because he's located down a crack, is the Collector. Now, the Collector is a geek like us. He loves tech, he loves retro tech in this instance, and the gaming world, which we have mostly said goodbye to. In some of his missions, he speaks about magazines and things like that, and you actually have to deliver some things at times that are from our world. And these things include the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation Portable, and a Japanese games magazine called Famitsu. It's a line of Japanese video game magazines still being published today. Quite often you will come across deliveries that are disc-based media and other portable consoles. I kind of like these little touches. The reason we have the Famitsu magazine is that the Collector is portrayed by Hirokazu Hamamura, who is the chief editor of that magazine. And just one more note about the Collector, you get the backpack cover from the Collector. So if you haven't sought out the Collector yet, it's definitely worthwhile doing. You get this protective cover for the backpack that protects cargo that's beneath it from timefall, which is very useful and pretty snazzy looking too. As we're already talking about the backpack modification, let's talk about customization. Quite easy to miss is the customization of your backpack. When you're in your private room, if you look at your backpack, you can actually customize it. You can put things like stabilizing units to stop you falling over so much, bigger batteries, grenade pouches, and other storage options, along with all the patches that you earn along the way. And of course, you can hang any of the charms you've collected off of it, just one at a time though. In fact, the game has a heck of a load of customization options. You can customize all your vehicle colors. You can customize what's on your backpack like we saw. You can customize BB's pod, material and color. In the endgame, you can even customize Sam's clothing, along with some of the collectible glasses and things like that. Did you know that the accessories that you hang off of your backpack actually have effects? Well, they do. Check this out. That's really awesome. I actually didn't realize for a while. I thought they were purely cosmetic, but no, they actually have an impact in the game. So many little touches, so many details. Something you might have missed are the hot springs. Littered around the central region, there's none in the other regions, you have hot springs in the game. There's actually 7. One of them is very missable because it's man-made. Let's just go through them all. The first one you would come across is the Northeastern Healing Spring. This one's just down the road from, I suppose, east of the Craftsman Prepper. This one regenerates your health as well as your stamina.
Yeah, enjoy it while you can, Sam.
The next one, which was actually the first one I came across, was the Crater Digestive Bath. I was a bit nervous to step into this one there. I thought it was going to digest me. But it's just west of the Film Director Prepper. And this one, funnily enough, will aid your digestion and promote more bowel movements that can increase the rate at which you can get the EX grenades from your private room's facilities. I don't know about you, but as soon as you discovered the hematic grenades, I wasn't using the EX ones anyway, so this wasn't hugely important for me. I do like the little duckies floating about in it though. The little Ludens ducks. Speaking of Ludens ducks, I'll tell you how to get giant holographic ones in just a few minutes. The next one is running along the ridge of the mountains between the southern and the northernmost regions of the central area, and it is the Falling Snow's Invigorating Waters. This one is just ever so slightly south of the Roboticist Prepper. This one rapidly recharges your health and stamina. The next one, which I wonder if it is a nod towards either the Cornetto trilogy or Pirates of the Caribbean, which it probably isn't, it's probably just a nod to actually what's going on in the game, is the World's End Miracle Pool. This one is in quite a lovely area. It's the grassy area up in the mountains in the central region, near enough the novelist's son, kind of halfway between him and the photographer. This spring also increases healing properties and rapidly brings up your health and stamina, and increases your maximum stamina as well, which is handy if you've been duking it out with the terrorists just over the way. There is another hard one to find. You've probably passed it 100 times and not seen it, and that's the Hidden Valley Digestive Bath. This one is literally a few paces away from the Dr. Prepper. Just walk to the left of the entrance and a few steps and you'll be right there. This one also is said to help with digestion and will increase the rate at which Sam is able to obtain EX grenades when you use your facilities. The final natural one is the Recharging Spring, and this one's just slightly southwest of the Evo Devo Biologist. This one not only recharges your health, but it also recharges and raises the battery level of anything in the pool. So standing in it will charge the batteries of anything you've got equipped, but resting in it recharges things at a much more rapid rate. The one that I think most people would miss is the Heartwarming Spa, though. This one is a man-made spa in the central region, and it's part of Heartman's lab. It's actually an open-air spa on the roof of Heartman's lab. Just go up this way here, I'll show you. Now, this one rapidly restores your stamina and boosts it beyond standard levels as well to help you with your endurance. So there you go, that one's pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, enjoy it while you can, Sam.
One thing I love, besides the Luden stocks when you're in these hot springs and spas, is how if you pay attention and you wait long enough, BB actually starts swimming in the pod, and it's just extremely cute. And in the same vein as that, Sam will actually start to sing. It's a Japanese song, and apparently the name is Liyun Dana, which translates to good hot water. Just use the same button you use to whistle or call out to people.
Ba ban 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 ban. Iu dana. Iu dana.
There you go, nice little detail. You can also take a bath with Mama, but I just didn't even consider that a possibility, and I don't have a save game to actually capture the footage of that. And besides, I don't think it's very gentlemanly to actually take a video of a lady when she's in the bath. I'll explain at what point in the game you can do that later though. Now, I do believe I promised to tell you how to get the Ludenstock holograms. So you can actually get different color Ludenstock holograms that you can place at your different structures you put around the world. And you get these by completing the combat missions that you can get in the training area from the different locations. So instead of going down to your private room, you can just go and have a go at some of those timed missions and get yourself a giant Ludenstock.
We made it out.
Now, when did you notice this? Well, zip-lining around the place, I used to hear a rumbling, and after a few times, I noticed what it was. This game actually has rock slides. Not quite landslides, but they are rock slides. So you'll get boulders rolling down the side of mountains as you go by them. And it's not just a visual thing too. These are physical objects rolling down the hill that Sam can come in contact with. I thought that was a really nice detail, very easy to miss, and just adds a touch of reality to the game, I thought. A really interesting and incredible detail, again, is Amelie's necklace. A long time back, so you've probably heard of this, but fans discovered pretty quickly that the pattern on the beads on her kipu, or is it Kewpie? Oh, I get confused. When lined up with a music grid, give you the melody to the song Give Me an Answer by Low Roar. Low Roar being the group from Iceland that Hideo Kojima stumbled across and included with some of the most iconic tracks of the game. I haven't been able to verify this because I don't know how the heck to read music, but one thing I do know, it's a brilliant track, and if true, an insane detail. In case you didn't get that far into the game, you actually have 3 segments where you fight in wartime, like World War I, II, Vietnam, and you get these kind of nightmare war beaches that are just endless and very kind of cosmic horror infused. Reminded me of the darkness when you went to the World War I hell trenches bit in that. You're whisked off to these endless war beaches by these massive vortexes you can see from miles away. Yeah. If a vehicle gets blown up while you're in it, Sam gets thrown out of it on fire, but you're not dead. You can just kind of drop and roll, you'll be fine. Not so much an in-game Easter egg as a pre-game Easter egg. The first trailer for Death Stranding appeared all the way back in 2016 at E3. Back when we had E3. And it revealed the game's name at the end. The same name you see on the title screen. Whether coincidence or not, this actually contains the release date for the game. So in the title you have 8 strands that are attached to 11 letters, giving the release date, which was November the 8th, 2019. It's kind of interesting. And hearing about the crunch that's going on with Death Stranding 2 at the moment and how much toll it's taking on Hideo and the team, I wouldn't be surprised if they do put little clues like this in and then, force themselves to stick to it, which would be an incredible amount of pressure for the sake of what essentially is a little cheeky Easter egg. Like, wow, that's intense. So this next one is a bit of a spoiler for Mass Effect, so if you haven't played Mass Effect, give me about 20 seconds or so and come back to me then. Or click to the next timestamp. Death Stranding is essentially the same story as Mass Effect, just on a Earth-wide scale as opposed to the galaxy, where in Mass Effect you have the Reapers that come and wipe out all organic life and let whatever's not quite developed rise up and then wipes them out. This is the same, but with the Death Stranding, every now and then there is an extinction entity. We've had 5, this is the 6th one, that wipes out all life. For example, what happened to the dinosaurs? And whatever is left alive becomes the next dominant species that then gets wiped out. It's essentially the same story, and I think that's maybe why it resonated with me so much. So, what about cryptobiotes? Okay, so the cryptobiotes are the little floaty, grubby little snacks that you eat to get a little bit of your health back. And it seems like Fragile absolutely adores them. But it seems Sam, on the other hand, takes a while to warm up to them. So, what's the story? What do I want to talk about? Well, they may look familiar to you. You may have seen their shape before if you've ever seen a water bear, better known as a tardigrade. Also colloquially known as moss piglets, I only just found out, are 8-legged micro-animals. And by micro-animals, they're microscopic, they're tiny. They were first discovered by a German zoologist called Johann August Ephraim Goes, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, in 1773. But lately they've been coming into prominence a bit more. Star Trek Discovery, for example. As much as I was not a fan of that series, I will admit that it had a very interesting take on a tardigrade. But what's very interesting, going back to the cryptobiotes, you may have noticed near the start, after the void out, when Sam comes to, he vomits a bunch of black oil, and with it come out some cryptobiotes. Okay, but the cryptobiotes are whole. Stay with me for a second and I'll explain why. So why were cryptobiotes based on tardigrades to begin with? Well, they are an animal that can survive extreme environments. For example, an environment that has timefall in it isn't something that's conducive to animal life, but a tardigrade can survive in it. So naturally, that's one animal that's going to survive and provide protein, I suppose. But another reason he picked them and named them cryptobiotes, and when I say he, I mean he and his team. I'm assuming that he has a team of people that come up with amazingly creative ideas, so Kojima Productions in general, is that the true power of a tardigrade, in that it has this ability to survive extreme conditions, is enabled by it having an ability to suspend its metabolic state on a really insane level. There's a frog that can do it and be practically near frozen and hibernate, but tardigrades take it to a next level. It's known as cryptobiosis. Not only can they survive extreme heat, extreme cold, nuclear radiation, complete dehydration, they can also be put in a blender and they can be mashed into tiny little pieces, and guess what? They will reform. That was actually something I believe only fairly recently discovered, that they come back together when they've been broken apart. They're essentially immortal. It's incredible. So, if you eat a cryptobiote and you chew it up, and Fragile God knows the amount of time the camera forces you to watch her chewing a cryptobiote, the fact that when Sam vomits it up, and he chews them as well, as you can see here, the fact that it's whole when he vomits it up is hugely accurate to a tardigrade. If you ate a tardigrade, it would reform in your stomach. So I don't know how it's gonna heal you. I don't know how you're gonna get like protein from it when it just reassembles itself and I guess passes through your digestive system undigested. I'm not quite sure how that works. And for that matter, when Sam takes the number 2 on the China throne, are they just floating out of it? Oh, Jesus. I can see it now. I can see the meeting now where he's saying this absolutely, you have to have this feature. And they're like saying, no, we absolutely cannot do this. This probably never happened. But all in all, a really awesome detail that when he vomits, the cryptobiotes are whole again after having eaten them. I think that's brilliant. As I mentioned moss a minute ago, and I expect I'm probably too late, you've already taken to the comments about it, but during my refresher research into tardigrades and finding out that they were also known as moss piglets, I found out that moss actually has a similar cryptobiotic ability as well, and certain mosses have survived for centuries. So this, I would imagine, is why we still have a green world in a timefall future. As you can see here, when it's actually raining or time falling, some plants are growing from nothing and dying immediately, whereas the moss is just staying as is. And that's why we have that lovely green covering of moss over so many areas in the game. That is why it does survive. So I guess algae and mosses, things like that. There you go. I thought that was quite interesting as well. And again, a justified reason as to why some vegetation has survived the ravages of timefall. Moss is kind of immortal too. Who knew? Well, the main cast of Death Stranding had a raft of household names from Norman Reedus to Margaret Qualley. The preppers and the bit parts in the game were chock-a-block full of cameos. I'm just going to cover a few for now, and I may come back to some more later. To start with, we have Sam Lake, who you all probably know if you're fans of Max Payne. His face is iconic. One of the earlier self-inserts, I suppose. But anyway, he's a Finnish writer and director for Remedy, who's worked on Max Payne and Alan Wake and starred in them. And yeah, so here he is. Just like Hideo Kojima, he is a veteran of the games industry himself. So his cameo in this is a veteran porter. And yeah, you get to meet him here. And after a while, one of the things you get from him is a hologram of him doing kung fu.
Take care, Sam. I've got high hopes for you.
The next one is Jeff Kiley. You may be familiar with this gentleman. He's a fairly well-known video games industry personality. He's a Canadian journalist and TV presenter who presents things like the Game Awards, Summer Games Fest, things like that. Anyway, he plays Ludens Fan, a collector of Ludens, which are these figures, like the one from the Kojima Productions logo. You can see him here as a hologram next to Jeff Kiley. Now, the reason I think the World's End Hot Spring might have been named after the Cornetto trilogy is that Edgar Wright actually stars in the game as well. He's got a cameo. He plays Thomas Sutherland at the distribution center south of Lake Knot City, if you want to check him out there. He's famous for the Cornetto trilogy, Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, some great movies. And for those of you who don't know, the Cornetto trilogy is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. I think Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are vastly superior to The World's End, but I don't think Shaun of the Dead, Hot Spring or Hot Fuzz Pool would have... Actually, no, Hot Fuzz Pool might have worked. But either way, the World's End one, I think that might be what it is. But if you want to check him out, like I said, he's in the distribution center south of Lake Knot City. And then finally, we have Conan O'Brien, which I think was a fun surprise. Self-admittedly not actually a gamer himself. He's shed light on different games and brought some humor to things with the Clueless Gamer bit that he did on his show. Led to things like Milfgard being a bit of a meme from The Witcher, which was carried into Cyberpunk, for example. But here he plays the partner of a character called the Cosplayer.
I know what you're thinking. Is that an otter on my head? Or am I just happy to see you? Well, both.
Why did they make me so unfunny and needy?
You get to have a bit of a chat with him and, he talks about his past. But I think one of the nicest things about the cosplayer is we get the new Timefall hood, which is an adorable otter. And what I think is easily missed about this otter hood is the fact that when it deploys, the side parts are actually little otter's arms that kind of clamp onto your face. It's absolutely adorable. It's definitely much nicer than the head crab.
By the way, that hood was threaded by the hand of my cosplay partner.
Now, this one is really easy to miss. I missed this until much later on in the game. There is a prepper that if you are just following the path and following the quests in the first area and thinking that the quests will take you to all the different preppers, you might miss out on this one. Unlike Luden's fam, where you're passing him and you'll see stuff for Luden's fam on the ground, this one, not so much. This is the musician, portrayed by Daichi Mura, a Japanese singer-songwriter that you may or may not be familiar with. And he's located here. Now, the really cool thing about the musician is the reward you get off him, and that's a harmonica. It's a harmonica that Sam can play by touching the square pad in the middle of the controller when he's sitting down and having a rest. Nice little addition, very easy to miss.
Structure upgraded.
Anyone trying to 100% the game will have noticed they don't have all the preppers and found it eventually, but if you've just been passing through that area and not double back, well there's an entire prepper there to help out and get a reward from. Anyway, there are actually a lot of other celebrity cameos, for example, the film director, but the ones I've mentioned are the ones that stood out to me. Which ones did you spot straight away? But yeah, moving on. Now, many of you know that the engine they used was called the Decima engine. Now, this engine was the same one used for Horizon Zero Dawn, and it was licensed to them by Guerrilla Games, I guess. And they included a bunch of Horizon Zero Dawn holograms in this. You get them from dealing with the craftsman in the main area. And this is what you get. You get one of Aloy. You get this watcher here that waits for you outside of the craftsman's entrance. And finally, the one that I think is most iconic and probably the tallest hologram in the game is this magnificent Tallneck. I think one of the most standout creatures from the whole Horizon Zero Dawn series. I've got a Lego version of it. I think it's so cool. But there you go. You get that one there. So you got Horizon Zero Dawn ones. Again, you have to just complete the craftsman's deliveries for that. But Tez, why the craftsman, you ask? Well, he's another cameo which I didn't mention in the cameo section. The body model is Herman Hulst, a craftsman himself. He is the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment Studios Business Group and PlayStation Studios, and he's one of the co-founders of Guerrilla Games. So that all ties in as to why you're getting the Horizon Zero Dawn stuff from him. I'd say chalk this next one down to modern day game references that are pretty out of place. This is a Super Mario one. I was quite surprised to come across this one. Not the fact that there was a Super Mario one in it, but that it was actually part of the dialogue, inferring the characters have played or just know about Super Mario in the future. But given both Bridget and Sam's age, the fact that they have Super Mario as a reference is funny. But anyway, she's basically saying that she's Princess Peach and Sam is Mario. And the journey is not unlike a Super Mario game where you're trying to get to Princess Peach at the castle. The castle was actually Edge Knot City, where she said she was being held captive, and when you turn up there, she wasn't there. She only ever existed on the beach. So just like the note, she isn't even in that castle. So actually, it's quite a good analogy.
Like Mario and Princess Peach.
She was in the other castle all along, the beach. It seems quite an odd and flippant kind of exchange given the gravity of the situation you find yourself in. It's an odd moment of daftness, really, but anyway, it is what it is. Next up, we have a reference from the Metal Gear series. The very first person you meet in the city after having met Fragile out in the wilds is Mama. And she's pretty rude to start with. She says, "What took you so long?"
What took you so long? It's not like the legend to come in late.
I was a little bit irked initially. I was like, that's not a very nice way to greet me after I've just traveled through these ravaged lands of Timefall, destroyed America, which Moss seems to be impervious to. But yeah, that's actually a Metal Gear Solid 5 reference. The very first person you rescue in that game is actually a cameo from Hideo Kojima. And it's the first thing he says to you.
What took you so long?
There you go. Oh look, and there's some JF eyewear again. I guess it must just be his favorite brand, is it? Another Metal Gear Solid reference, you'll get a message from Die Hardman. He says, if you were a spy on a mission, you would have failed. But you're not, so be proud of those tracks. They're proof you existed.
If you were a spy on a mission, you'd have failed. But you're not. So be proud of those tracks. They're proof that you exist. Keep leaving that proof. Let people know you're out there. Give them the courage to come together again.
Games like Metal Gear Solid are the kind of games where you will fail a mission if you get detected, or everything goes to shit. But not so in Death Stranding, you can fight your way out of it. And it appears the second half of that statement, the proof that you existed, is a reference from Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, wasn't it? You don't have to be stealthy, but you'll be remembered. Your character anyway. And you've got this whole Metal Gear Solid inspired game over graphic here, and the repeated references to Ground Zero.
Game over, man. Place is a crater. The only ones to get it continue were you.
And in this extra mission you get here in this ruined factory area, one of my favourite Metal Gear Solid references lies in wait. So this specific mission was added in the director's cut, and it's the ruined factory. And you find out a lot more about what went on with the Bridge Baby experiments and Coffin, who is Fragile's mother. When you enter the place, you notice the bad guys, and Sam instantly wonders should he try and stealth it up. And what does he see? He sees a box with Fragile in it, and he actually contemplates using the box and hiding in it, but then thinks better of it. Again, this is definitely a nod to the Metal Gear Solid games. Admittedly, I'm not enough of a Metal Gear Solid aficionado to know what the oranges might be referring to, but I have a feeling that they might have some kind of significance. And in case you're interested, the Irish for orange is Arajda. I'm pretty sure Snake gets under the box. Perhaps somebody should have given Sam a manual. Anyway, this is in the future and we have the chiral network. So Sam has his own equivalent of this where he can create a hologram of a boulder around himself, and that's kind of the same deal. You know, it's a much more upgraded version of the box, and yeah, he's scoffing a little bit of the box here, dismissing it as any kind of legitimate or realistic option for stealth, which I think we can all get on board with. I like that one.
Sorry, Sam. Looks like you triggered an emergency lockdown. Only way to lift it is to...
If you left the ruined factory the way you came, you might have missed the graveyard with the BT at the top. You access it by going up this ladder here. It's my guess that this is Coffin's BT at the top, watching over all the graves of the children that died during the BB program. Heavy stuff. It's a place that's only reachable via the ruined factory. Well, at least it was until I stuck a zip line up there. But there you go. It's, yeah.
Sam.
One last Metal Gear Solid hangover or tribute is the communications device you use to communicate with the other members of Bridges is called a codec. I don't know why it has a lowercase d. All the interfaces have some strange upper and lowercase decisions. I'm not sure why. If you know, let me know below. I guess we can expect all Hideo Kojima games in the future to have codecs in them. Why not? It's a trademark probably at this stage.
If I find anything out, I'll tell you, all right? Deadman's honor.
All weapons will remain locked until departure. All clear.
This may seem out of place in such a modern futuristic city area where everyone's living underground to see these buildings, and you kind of just assume it's a part of the old city before everything went to shit with the Stranding. However, this is a very specific asset. This is the city, or well, town that Kojima was working on for the cancelled Silent Hills project. It was going to be created by Guillermo del Toro and Hideo Kojima and star Norman Reedus, and they did make a demo for it called PT, or Playable Teaser. So this is that town. They use the same asset, so not only is that great because he's reusing and recycling, he's very economically minded, but also it makes for a stellar Easter egg. That's fantastic. But this is what I think is really interesting about the fact that this asset has been used. Could there be a connection between Silent Hill and the nightmarish visions that are manifested in that town, and Death Stranding and the BTs? Could there be hints at a connection there? He even adds a PT Easter egg. When you go down to your private room, occasionally you'll get random cutscenes. A couple of them in particular are some not particularly nice nightmares. Check this out. So, as far as I can tell, that's pretty reminiscent of Lisa from PT. Whatever, it scared the bejesus out of me. Whilst these are just Easter eggs, it still is interesting that it could hint towards some creative desire to have them connected in some way. Let's talk about Deadman and how he got his name. This is revealed in the latter stages of the game, but if you never got that far, you might just think having a scar across his forehead like Frankenstein is just a bonkers Kojima decision for no particular reason. But no, it turns out that he actually is Frankenstein's monster, more or less. Deadman wasn't born by usual methods. He was actually grown in an artificial womb, and after his birth, due to some kind of genetic defects, he had missing organs and ones not functioning as they should be. So what doctors did is they began to replace them over time from those of compatible donors in order to keep him alive. The partly fabricated story that Deadman actually runs with is that 70% of his body was harvested from cadavers due to whatever failures happened with his vital organs and such, and the remaining 30% was grown from stem cells. Regardless, he is a bit of a mishmash of people, a bit of a Frankenstein's monster. Having not been born in the traditional way, Deadman was born without a soul, or quote-unquote ka, just the ha. So for that reason, he is fascinated with beaches because he does not have a beach. He's absolutely obsessed with everything about deadness, or dead people, or becoming dead, I suppose, which is why he was a coroner that went into the medical team of Bridges, ultimately looking after President Bridget Strand when there was a resurgence in her cancer. A really interesting little snippet about him is his real name, which you can see only from his ID badge, is Dr. Rogiot Melio, which is an anagram of Guillermo del Toro, who is the filmmaker who plays Deadman, who just so happens to be working on an adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as well, a gothic science fiction horror film, so it's all connected. Responsible for one of the most intense shower scenes in the whole game. He, even more so than the BT nightmare, he is interested in connecting with Sam. So it's all about the human experience. He's just trying to connect the whole time. Although I probably should clarify that this shower scene is more about him not being listened to and wanting to be able to talk in private. It's just filmed in such a way that it shows what an intense person he is and how he possibly has some boundary issues. And just one more little thing about him, he does have a shameless plug for The Shape of Water, one of his other movies, where he's talking about the connection to Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady and the My Fair Lady in the London Bridges song, so it's all kind of connected. And there's also a little nod to Spider-Man that comes from his mouth very early on in the game as well, where he says, "I'm your friendly neighborhood Deadman."
Sam, your friendly neighborhood Deadman here.
Quite an interesting character. Speaking of the nursery rhyme London's Bridge, I think I called it song a minute ago, but that's the ringtone, if you call it ringtone, from the codec anytime Mama in the game contacts you. Mama's a very, very complex and quite sad tale that made me shed a tear, actually. Bonkers as it was heart-wrenching as well. I'm going to give you the kind of abridged version of what happened. Mama, or Melingen to give her full name, and Lochne, her sister, were geniuses. They were born with dooms and they were co-joined twins, joined at the head. Because of this, they were surgically separated, but it had an interesting side effect. Afterwards, they were still able to communicate with each other, regardless of distance. They both joined Bridges, and as time went on, without going into too much detail, basically Mama agrees to carry Lochne's child for her because Lochne's unable to, and combined they can do it. And during that time, when she's waiting in hospital for a cesarean section, there's a terrorist attack that essentially kills Mama. She gives birth to the baby on the other side, so that baby is born as just the Ka only. Mama's Ka dies and her Ha kind of survives, but is tethered to that location by the BT. So she stays there, she never leaves, and she nurses the baby and takes off her cuff link so people don't know. However, she cannot communicate with Loughnane from this point because she's got this kind of unnatural state that she's living in where her Ka and the baby's Ka can't move on and her Ha is kind of clinging onto it. Just in case I haven't mentioned it already or you've skipped that part of the video, if I did, your Ha and your Ka is essentially your body and your soul. So the Ka is the bit that goes to the beaches and your Ha is the physical body that remains and decomposes or goes necro and creates a void out, depending on the situation. But yeah, it's basically body and soul. And in a way, a BT is essentially a manifestation of that Ka that's trapped and cannot move on to a beach. So she was essentially in some kind of limbo, locked to that location, kept alive by being connected to a BT child which she nursed. It's pretty messed up. Here's what's really interesting. When she decides to move on and reunite with Loughnane at Mountain Knot City, she gets you to sever the connection and you transport her there.
Do it.
So, anyway, so the trip is arduous at best. Higgs tries to stop you on the way with one of his massive, awesome-looking capture beasts.
Get ready, Sam. It's coming.
But you get away from him and you have a long trek over the mountains with Mama on your back as she's passing away. By the time you get there, she hasn't got long left and she passes away. Finally released by letting her Ha go, her Ka reunites with Loughnane and they become one, connected once again. I told you it was confusing. One of the nice little touches, which I think a lot of people might miss, is that Lougnane's right eye turns blue. Mama had blue eyes and Loughnane had kind of green eyes, and at the moment they reconnect, she instantly develops heterochromia and one of her eyes instantly turns blue. She also develops a phantom odor deck arm that was Mama's one. And I thought that was a nice touch to show that they had become one again. Both sisters were portrayed by Margaret Qualley, and I think they did a really good job of subtly differentiating them. Couple of interesting notes when you're transporting Mama to Loughnane over the mountains and you try and call out, she'll tell you to be quiet so that you don't alert the BTs. She'll also ask you who you're talking to or tell you that she's right next to you. You can actually enter one of the hot springs on the way over as well, and she will start humming a tune from the soundtrack while she's there, so you can give her a bath. And finally, both Malingen and Loughnane are the names of two impact craters in Sweden thought to have formed simultaneously. There you go.
Oh, what do we have here? What do we have here? A spaceman.
Around Christmas time when you're playing the game, automatically people will start wearing Santa hats. And I think that's fun. I actually love that kind of stuff. I loved it in Stellar Blade as well, although I think I preferred Stellar Blade's implementation of Christmas time more. My God. But you can also get a Santa hat for Sam that you can wear if you're feeling in the festive mood, especially good for when you're up in the snowy places. You get this one from the first prepper, who, like the veteran porter, is one of the harder to find non-compulsory preppers around the place that if you want 100% everything, you'll be looking out for.
Oh, look. It's a beanie.
Next up, we have your birthday. As you know at the start, you can put your birthday in, and it has some bearing on Dooms. I've only put my birthday in, so I don't know what bearing it actually has at the end of the day. I'm not going to replay through the game with different birthdays. The main thing I find awesome about putting your birthday into the game is when it is your actual birthday and you play the game on your birthday, it gives you a cake. Not only that, if you have a BB flashback, you'll see Mads Mikkelsen wishing you happy birthday. And he's not talking to BB, he's talking to you, the player, or Sam, and he gives you a bunch of flowers. It's absolutely fantastic. Check this out.
See these? You do know what day it is today, don't you? Is it Mommy's birthday? Is it BB's birthday? No. But today is a very special day, all the same. A special day for a special someone. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. Happy birthday.
Now, what I want to know is who's eating the fucking cake, though. Look, every time you look away, there's a bit more gone. Who's eating my cake? So the game celebrates your birthday in a really cool way. Something I thought was interesting is the cake that Clifford Unger is handing up to you had a rainbow on it, a proper rainbow with all the colours. I don't think that was an accidental choice either.
We can have a real party. Well, happy birthday.
Funnily enough, for a game often labelled as a walking simulator, I spent the majority of my time on the roads I built or zip lines nipping around the place. And as a result, one of the things I absolutely loved about the game was building the roads. It's a very special experience, not only because it's fun to do, but also because it functionally connects you with the other players in a meaningful way. Every time you log on, you get all the likes from all the people that used your road, and you can see who's added materials to repair your roads, or vice versa. They will be notified when you add materials or you complete a road, and they can use it. The same with your zip lines. It makes the game a very unique social experience that makes you feel just as connected as Sam is supposed to be becoming. Something of a communal experience in that way. What I absolutely love about the roads, though, it was like having your very own Scalextric in the game. Not only did it look and build like one, it also functioned like one, or any other kind of slot racing brand. I'm sure there's more than just Scalextric, in that if you're driving along the middle section, your vehicle is powered by the road, by the chiral network. And it's so cool. And to that end, they actually, and I think this was added in the director's cut also, they add a track for you to do races around. It's really cool. It's just south of the Timefall Farmers. Very much literally like having a Scalextric at that point, because the whole point of it was to drive around it as fast as you could. And if only playing the standard version you missed the racetrack, you also wouldn't know that they've added an extra vehicle. It's a roadster, kind of a bit of a retro style car, very fast, no use off-road at all, even though it does have suspension that raises up if you're going through water. It's still a nice little addition. And you get the blueprint for that by completing the races on the racetrack. And by races, I essentially mean time trials. You're not racing against other cars, just the clock. Another fun thing that was added in Director's Cut was the ramp, along with some other things like the cannon that lets you shoot your load of cargo a bit of a distance, which I actually never used. They also added things like a chiral bridge and, one of my favorites, this jump. So you can create this jump ramp that allows you to basically fly over large distances and do stunts. Whether you're on a bike or you're on foot, you can actually kind of, X Games style it out by doing a Superman pose or something while you're on the bike, or doing a flip while you're on foot. It's a bit of fun, and it's a nice way of clearing a river or something like that real quickly. Let's take a really quick look at some other standalone TV and film references. To begin with, there's one that will probably stand out to fans of Mads Mikkelsen, and specifically the series Hannibal. At one point, Cliff is having a glass of wine in one of the memories, and the wine he is drinking in that scene, or pouring up, is the one that he prefers to drink in Hannibal. Well, at least according to Hannibal aficionados, the wine is referenced several times in the books and in the TV series as Bâtard Montrachet, something like that anyway.
Our little secret. I got my hands on something special. Bâtard Montrachet Grand Cru. I might lay the test somewhere you rolled them.
So the film director is Jordan Vogt-Roberts. I'm not sure if Vogt-Roberts is right, but anyway, he was director of 2017's Kong Skull Island, and on one particularly tricky mission for him, or delivery request for him, you have to go and collect a bunch of little model gorillas. Obviously, they're Kong statues, Kong figurines.
Can't believe you brought me so much. You are a credit to your profession.
Now another movie reference. This time it's for the best Christmas film ever made. One of my favourites. And that is, of course, Die Hard. We love a Die Hard reference that probably has gone over a lot of gamers' heads because Die Hardman in the game is someone, as you learn from his backstory, dies hard because Cliff is always dragging him out of the fire or danger zone as his commander in the wars that he was involved in and the combat he was involved in. But his name is also literally John McClane, or John Blake McClane to give him his full name. So he's named after Bruce Willis's character in Die Hard. I think that might have skipped over a lot of people's heads. I know I didn't click with it straight away, and I'm a massive Die Hard fan, so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So Die Hard Man is named after Bruce Willis's character because, as we know, John McClane in the movies dies hard. It's hard to kill. And I believe from my research that Die Hard is actually one of Hideo Kojima's favorite films, so he is a man of exceptional taste. BB has a lot of fun poses for photo mode. I'm pretty sure this one is the Home Alone pose. What do you reckon? Both Higgs and Sam are practically brothers of the Extinction. I'm going to talk more about the history of Higgs a bit later, but I just want to cover some of the interesting secrets, details, and fourth wall breaking moments that both Sam and Higgs have throughout the game, almost uniquely. There are a couple of moments with Heartman, who looks at the camera, but for the most part, Higgs and Sam are the biggest perpetrators at breaking the fourth wall. So let's have a look at all their little secrets and fourth wall breaks here, along with some of the other details that makes them interesting. Right, let's start off with Higgs, played by Troy Baker. So throughout the second act, I suppose, when you're in the middle section, you'll start delivering pizzas to somebody called Peter Englert. Throughout the game, you'll be delivering pizzas to him. You'll never really be getting his star level up that much, and you never get to meet him. At the end of the game, you will get one final pizza delivery to him, and you find out that he is in fact Higgs. There's a backstory to Higgs, which is a whole video in itself about his connections with Fragile and his childhood. It's all in the notes of the game and very interesting, but for now, we'll just go with the reveal or the Easter egg, okay? The interesting about Peter Englert is that is taken from the first name of Peter Higgs and the last name of Francois Englert, the two scientists who were awarded the Nobel Prize for the work that they did in relation to the Higgs boson particle.
The name's Higgs, the particle of God that permeates all existence.
Which Higgs is named after. So it seems like nothing is for chance. Once you find this out anyway and you realize it towards the end, you get a bit of an inkling, this mysterious person who likes these pizza deliveries, and when you actually then read back over the emails and you look at the notes, you'll see everything fits as everything else in this game does. You actually get to go and visit his shelter one last time. With that delivery, he leaves the door open and you can have a good route around, and you can see his war wall where he's mapped out everything. He's got stuff written in hieroglyphics and everything, so it's a very interesting, very densely packed room. Definitely worth a route around. But yeah, Higgs is Peter Englert. Pretty cool, all tied up quite nicely. Staying on the line of Higgs, he has a couple of kind of fourth wall breaking moments where he says this.
So how about it? Aren't you getting tired of the grind? Isn't this what you've been waiting for this whole time? A game over.
And at the end, the final fight with Higgs is quite a kind of gamer moment. It's a boss fight. He even says himself, no BTs, no void outs, just a good old-fashioned boss fight. Again, a bit fourth wall breaking, reminding us that we are in a video game and almost let the protagonists know they are in a video game. It's all pretty cool, I think. And the fight that ensues actually turns out like a Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat type of fight, where it's actually a fist fight with the traditional kind of health bars at the top of the screen.
So, no BTs, no void outs, no bullshit. Just a good old-fashioned boss fight. Stick versus rope. Gun versus strand. One more in before the end. One last game over.
I just love that kind of craziness. Why not? And it really does fit with Higgs as a character as well, because he is quite theatrical and he's really playing into the whole Extinction event as a foregone conclusion, and he's leaning into it and he's enjoying it and he's reveling in it. The whole thing is almost a joke to him. So yeah, he's absolutely loving every minute of it, even in defeat.
There's so much you people don't know.
And speaking of fourth wall breaking things that let you know you're in a game, in one of the false endings, one when you end up stranded on the beach and you're walking around, everything's grey. If you press the square in the middle of your controller, you know, the one that usually calls out to people around you or does the whistling or the harmonica, Sam will say these lines.
This is a bug or something, right? This even finished?
I think that's brilliant. I'm not sure if this is the intent, but this is the way it comes across. Occasionally when you trip up and you stumble, Sam criticizes you, I believe, as the gamer. He gives out to you a little bit of a fourth wall break, I think. Sam also winks at you. And there are lots of other times when he interacts directly with us, breaking that fourth wall, just like the one I previously detailed with the Timefall Porter. Now, this next one is one of the few I did not discover myself, because who would actually think to do this in the first place? Either way, if you mess around and stare at Sam's crotch, you're gonna find out, as he unleashes his inner Daryl Dixon on you. Initially, he covers up, he's bashful, and he tries to wave you off. If you keep doing it, he'll flip you the bird. Although generally, I think he just does that if you annoy him. It doesn't have to be looking at his crotch to make him flip the bird. But anyway, regardless, if you don't stop, you're gonna get your lights punched out. Here you go, watch this. But it's not even just that he punches you, it's the fact that what he's punching is a camera or a screen. It's like he knows he's on a reality TV program with a camera pointing at him the whole time. Never would have known that existed. Now, the feet tapping, however, no, I'm kidding. If you stare at his feet, he starts to tap. And if you stare at his legs, you sometimes get to see this rare Hideo Kojima cutscene, well, nightmare. In fact, let's go ahead and check out some of the nightmares next. I'm using the term nightmare loosely because some of them are clearly waking nightmares or hallucinations, but, you know, basically trippy, scary moments. You've also got this whale one, which is pretty cool. And you've got two that are involving BB. One is particularly disturbing. Check them out. Wait, did I say 2? Here's one more, and this is probably my favourite. It's all almost enough to make you never want to check on BB again. And there are also a couple of mirror-related ones. Seeing him turn around with Higgs' mask on.
Someone like you with dooms.
And a couple involving showers, which we've already seen, but let's just watch it again, this time in full. And one that is a bit less terrifying. And for all the Giantess fans out there, check out this nightmare.
You came for me. I knew you would. Sam, it's me.
Amelie?
Tell you something. I am the Extinction entity.
And there are actually a few, well, quite a few more that happen purely on the beach and are pretty story related, so you are guaranteed to see them at some point during the game because they are kind of feeding you bits of story information. This game is a technical marvel and it has some really clever details in it as well. Let's just take a look at a few more now. Did you know that going over the waterfall will dump you straight into the seam? Check this out. I think one of the things a lot of people will have missed is the combat, because they were put off the game by being told it was a walking simulator or a UPS simulator, and they would have missed out on the fact that there's a lot of combat in this game, and the boss fights are phenomenal because the ground floats up with tar and buildings rise out of the ground and you have to mantle all these different surfaces and fight these big capture BTs. The whole thing is an exceptional experience from that point, and it's kind of sad that people will have missed out based on incorrect perceptions of the game, because a lot of this stuff was in the standard edition as well. For example, you can use the vehicles as weapons, you can melee combat by punching, doing flying knees, doing flying crossbodies, doing flying crossbodies, doing flying crossbodies, doing running away, doing full grab charges. You can throw objects at enemies, and you've got a myriad of weapons. You've got pistols, assault rifles, you've got anti-BT weapons, you can take out BTs with your cuffs, you've got rocket launchers, grenade launchers, and even shotguns. And all varieties have lethal and non-lethal variants. You've got the mazer gun, which is essentially a ranged taser lightning gun, which you can't use on BTs but is brilliant for taking down mules quickly. Also, there's the bowler gun, which doesn't fire Ebola but bolas. You know, the kind of string with two balls on either end, which you can use to lasso an enemy and trip them up, or if you get them in the neck, you'll actually instantly knock them out. You can also subdue bad guys by stealthing up behind them and taking them down with your strand, which is like a piece of rope, at which point you tie them up and they're secured. And let's not forget the shower water, piss, shit and hematic grenades, along with the stun grenades. Bonkers, but awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of different weapons and a lot of different ways to fight. There's even standing weapon emplacements. And then you've got the whole challenge of not actually killing your enemies, except for the BTs, you're sending them to the great beyond, but the mules and the demons that you're fighting, if you kill them, you have 2 in-game hours to get them to an incinerator before they go necro. And if they go necro, it's game over. Because obviously, because of game engine limitations, you can't be littering the place with void out craters. What's more, you have the different variety of combat depending on what you're fighting. So you've got the different levels of mules and terrorists and whatnot, and they get stronger and they have different weapons and they come charging at you in vehicles and all this. But you also have the BTs. You've got standard BTs, you've got the baby BTs, you've got fat BTs, tall BTs, giant BTs, you've got red BTs that are impossible to kill with blood weapons and you have to cut their umbilical cord. You've got the gold BTs, which are really fast moving. You got BT kebabs, BT Creole, BT gumbo, pan fried BT, deep fried BT, stir fried. Then you've got the ones that come out of the ground and grab you and drag you to the capture BTs, and when the capture BTs get you, you get a void out. And let's not forget the jellyfish or the floating blobs. They come in 3 flavors as well. And from Higgs's Street Fighter style boss fight to the gigantic whale, the boss fights and the capture BTs are some of the most varied things I've come across. It's really so much more than a walking simulator. It's just a game that does walking and carrying items better than any other game. Apart from stumbling over rocks, but that actually improves as your gear improves. It basically takes certain elements that other games neglect to the next level, raises the bar and shows what can be done. Even the way different enemies treat you, for example, mules won't actively kill you, they'll just incapacitate you and steal your shit, then dump your unconscious body somewhere. So you have to go and fight them to get your stuff back. So the gameplay is pretty dynamic and very emergent. Oh yeah, and the KOs, the knockouts happen in slow motion, giving you precious moments to grab cargo as it flies through the air. One little thing you might have missed though, the void outs and non-void out deaths are not game over. They've been tied into the game, which is fantastic. Your character is a repatriate. The usual kind of reload your save, you failed the game, comes up a couple of times at key moments where you can't just repatriate because it's mission critical or game critical, like not delivering a nuke or getting something to the right place on time. But all other times, you'll go into a place called a seam. A seam is like an underwater area where you're swimming around and you swim back to your body. It's at this point you can connect to other players, other porters, and you increase your ability to see their things in the game and interact with their deliveries, and them help you and you help them with repairing roads and things like that. So it's built into the game. So it's not the end of the world if you do die. And even if you are caught by a capture BT and a void out is created, they will always drag you to a location on the map where that can happen. And when this does happen, again, you go to the scene just as on a normal death and connect to other players the same way. And then you still respawn because you were a repatriate. It's not just a game over, continue or reload. It's actually part of what the character can do based on the storyline of how Amelie turned him into a repatriate. But there's a little detail you might not have noticed had you been trying to avoid creating void outs, and it's this. At the bottom of the crater here, if you look closely, the remnants of the tar that has been left forms a handprint, the iconic BT handprint. How cool is that? I mean, that's totally awesome, in my opinion. And just in case I haven't explained it well enough, in short, Sam is immortal, at times referred to by people like Die Hardman as someone without death or deathless because of the fact that when he dies he repatriates. Sam is immortal. He cannot be killed, at least within the confines and the parameters that the first game sets out for us. Also, it's good to know, don't worry about shooting bad guys while they're in the river. They won't drown. Just like Sam, they have inflatable life vests that come up around their neck. Another thing you might have missed because it's not explained in the game, but there is an achievement for it, so you might have discovered it, but if you haven't, did you know you can trade with other porters, the NPC porters? So what you do when you're passing a porter, you greet them by pressing the touchpad in the middle, and next they usually stop straight away and they hold out a package to offer you. So what you have to do in order to accept this trade is select an item from your cargo and equip it in your hand, right or left, I don't think it matters, then approach the porter with the cargo you wish to exchange. Now, this should happen automatically, but what can also happen is you can just place it on the floor and take the one from them and they will pick it up off the floor. Kind of works either way, but basically just have something in your hand when they come up to you with something in their hand and you'll work it out. I kind of fudged it, it works and it's pretty fun. And also something they added to help you carry stuff in the director's cut are buddy bots. Now, buddy bots did exist in the original game, but this is one you can craft and use to actually keep you company, not just send off on automated missions. Funnily enough, something I didn't notice till I was deep into the game is the map on your cufflink is 3D. You can just move it with the right analog stick. I can't talk about the game's superb mechanics without a quick mention about the inventory and cargo system. It's so advanced and it puts every other game to shame that it's quite surprising it was used as a kind of negative, but having to balance your weight, making sure things are not upright if it's a pizza, or make sure you're not submerging it if it's a living creature, making sure you have cans of repair spray, making sure the heaviest things at the bottom. Maybe you're delivering something volatile that can't take knocks. Then you got to think about whether you're going to bring extra carriers with you, if you're going to wear an exoskeleton, if you're going to take a vehicle. You got to think about what terrain you're going to be covering. You also have to leave some room for what weaponry you're going to be carrying, depending on what territory you're going to be going through. You have to check what the weather conditions are going to be like in case there's going to be lots of BT activity. It makes it feel quite real, although superhuman in many ways as well. There's just so many things about it that are very interesting. Now, I'm not saying every game should have a realistic inventory system like this, but it would be nice to see some kind of adaptation or adoption of some of these ideas in other games, in my opinion. Despite my protestations of this not being a walking simulator, you do quite a bit of walking at times, and you have boots that wear out and you have to look after them. If you don't look after your boots, you'll end up with very sore and bloodied feet. Additionally, spend too much time in the snowy mountains and you get frostbite. It does eventually go away. When I first started, I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna lose fingers and toes now, but you know, thankfully the game isn't that realistic. The frostbite does fade after a while. It's a little bit more forgiving than real frostbite. At least real frostbite that's gotten that bad. Did you know you can get awesome boots and an awesome ladder? Although the ladder's not so important the later you get into the game, but having a good pair of boots is always handy. You get them from the chiral artist, or the chiral artist's mum specifically. And yeah, once you get her up to a certain point, she starts giving you chiral boots, which are boots that last like twice as long as any other boots. They're awesome. And did you know if you're on a bike and you run out of juice and there's nowhere to charge nearby, you can actually walk the bike by turning left and right. It'll actually kind of walk the bike forward. It's a bit laborious, but if you really must hang on to that bike for some reason, then yeah, you can walk it home. This is a very cool but pretty situational thing. The carrier that you use to carry additional items when you're making large deliveries can be used as a sled or a toboggan or a snowboard practically. Just check this out, it's a lot of fun. Just make your way to the highest peak you can, get out your carrier and have some fun. Seriously? Like it or not, we can make no bones about it, this game has heavy spiritual overtones, undertones, midtones, tones. It very much focuses on the afterlife and what is beyond. It's a central theme in many characters' arcs and even reason for being.
It is said that everyone's beach is different.
So what if everyone's afterlife is different too? I find the thought terrifying, spending eternity alone, which is why I decided to find my family and make sure to move on with them.
You mean die with them?
So some very interesting perspectives and things to discuss on this. There's been a lot of debate about the intent about this next one. At the very start of the game, you'll see Sam's wearing his iconic suit, and it has numbers on the front of it. Or I guess I should say overalls or boiler suit, something like that. The numbers are 0914-137. At least it looks like that. I always wondered, could the 3 be actually an 8 that's been worn off? But either way, we're running with 137. This hasn't been confirmed, but they might be referring to Psalm 137 verse 9, which reads, "Happy is the one who seizes your infants and dashes them against the rocks," which you may notice is 14 words long, so it fits. Thematically, the game is centered a lot around infants. It's pretty gruesome, but it might have some legs. As far as I know, it's not been confirmed. It could just be a coincidence, but as we know with Kojima, nothing really ever is a coincidence. Same in Cyberpunk. There's very few things that are just, we'll just put a random set of numbers into something. They usually have some significance. And as far as I know, this is the best working theory for what these numbers are. Here's an interesting fact. Have you ever noticed how chiral crystals float up into the air? They actually have negative weight. So collecting chiral crystals actually helps you out. For every 1,000 crystals you have, it negates 1 kilogram of weight that you're carrying. Admittedly, it's not much, but every little helps when you're keeping on, huh? And speaking of chiral crystals, the game postulates that chiralium is found in bridgmanite. Bridgmanite being a mineral found in abundance in our Earth, named in honor of Nobel Prize-winning physicist Percy Williams Bridgman. It's all connected: bridges, Bridgman, bridgmanite, all this stuff. Bridgmanite comprises 38% of the Earth. That's a massive amount. But because it's only found deep beneath the surface, it's tricky to get any kind of samples for analysis. Prior to the Death Stranding, there was a meteorite which was found to have some bridgmanite in it. So it's not something just found on Earth. So the running theory within the game, at least, is that chiralium, this stuff that makes up chiral crystals, was absorbed into this metal, this mineral, at the moment of Earth's creation. And that links into the way that the tar bubbles up from below the ground, which, although not chiralium, it's just some kind of tar, it's all connected. I just love the way the game weaves in real life stuff and connects everything and makes it just so interesting. So how is this all kind of related to religion, or at least spirituality in any way? Well, if you take things to be a kind of heaven and hell based thing, where the beaches are essentially purgatory, bridgmanite is beneath our feet and it bubbles up from the ground, and the chiralium in the clouds blocking out the light prevents us from ascending when we go to our beach, so is our final destination as we are dragged down into this hellish tar down below. Yeah, it's dark, isn't it? And that's why when you kill a BT, although their ghostly forms float upwards, either a part of them or their essence is dragged back down into the tar, and their last desperate clawing grasps to stay above the ground are left as this chiralium hardens into the chiral crystals that we collect. So it's like they're trying to grasp on but crystallizing. That's great stuff. Do you know there's no blue in the upside down rainbows because blue is the color of death? At least according to Deadman. But also interestingly, blue is the color of death if you're on a PC. Blue screens of death. So there's possibly a little in-joke there, but also blue can be considered the color of heaven. So that being an additional reason for its emittance might also make a bit of sense. Did you ever notice when you go to this unbuilt way station here at the tar belt? Look at it, what does it remind you of? If you two said crucifix, then we're on the same wavelength here. How is that not a crucifix? Obviously it's laid down, but that cannot be coincidental. Something interesting I'm wondering if you noticed. In the post game when you've been to the beach and back, Nick Easton says to you this. He goes, "There's something different about you." Check out this line here.
There's something different about you. Can't quite put my finger on it, what? But I swear, I'm not imagining.
What does he see that's different about you? I'm kind of not getting it. Is this because Sam has been to the beach and back? Is it because of what has actually changed? Has something changed about Sam? Is it something spiritual? Or is it just that Nick Easton is the person you meet at the start when you really just don't give a damn about reconnecting America or humanity? You're isolationist yourself, and when you see him in the end, afterwards because you're brought back to that area, he sees how much you've grown as a person. Is that all that is? What do you reckon? Let me know. Okay, let's just go through a few quick ones. Check out this goose hologram. Peace was obviously never an option. This is a fun little detail. You can actually piss off Fragile. If you make Fragile teleport you too many times, she'll actually get quite upset with you. Quite rightly so, because you're kind of abusing that power and she kind of lets you know, and it really kind of seems to sour the relationship with her, at least for these kind of interactions here. Check it out.
Okay, Sam. Close your eyes. Clear your thoughts and picture your destination. Another jump? Are you sure you're up for this? Well, if you insist. Picture your destination. Again, I'm not a machine, you know. Where do you want to go? Keep that image in your thoughts. Get ready. You really need to jump this much? Well, anyway, you know what to do.
I gotta be honest, feels bad, man. Jesus. One thing I came across which struck me as pretty funny was the fact that nobody knows what an octopus is, or at least the people we're dealing with don't seem to know. You deliver a collection of what are labelled as mutated organisms to the paleontologist, and they are listed as follows. These curious creatures have numerous limbs, each with a suction pad at the end. They don't look like they could possibly be from this world. I happen to agree, they do look pretty alien. But yeah, imagine being shown an octopus for the first time. You would kind of think, what the heck is that shit? Check out the tallest coral stack in the entire game. Look at the size of this one. This is just here.
That's tasty.
Check out this detail with the harvesters. They actually harvest the wheat. Alright, as they go, the wheat gets cut behind them, so they leave tracks in the wheat. I thought that was cool. Although visiting Heartman has lots of nice little details and really good chunks of story development, there are not a lot of Easter eggs there. There are a couple of things. Just an interesting thing about the lake outside the house. There's actually a lake in Ireland called Loch Owler, and I think that's how it's pronounced anyways, in County Wicklow, in the Wicklow Mountains, and it's actually heart-shaped. I'm imagining there's probably other heart-shaped lakes in the world, but it'd be interesting if that's what this was based off of. The likeness of Heartman has been taken from one of Hideo Kojima's director friends, Nicholas Winding Refn, who's directed things like Valhalla Rising, The Neon Demon, and Drive. I quite like Drive. And we do have a little Easter egg connected to his likeness being used. It's often been noted that he uses a lot of kind of slow, long panning shots, and we have one in this scene here. And as a little joke / Easter egg, it uses his logo here. It says by NWR. On the way out, I don't know if you actually have to look at the gramophone while you're waiting for him, but on the way out of your first meeting with him, there's a nice moment of levity as Sam tries to do a bit of a record scratch. He gets a bit of a thumbs down from Heartman for doing it though. Or rather, he loses 20 likes. And then gains them straight back again. But Heartman does look at the camera quite often and give us 20 likes every now and then. He likes breaking that fourth wall a little bit, I think. There's a lot of DVDs and books around the walls here. One of them is Casualties of Twilight. This is also an email you get about a movie script. And this is a movie script about two lovers, one from the East, one from the West, during the Cold War, and about how they would destroy the world in order to be together. Some people have theorized that this might actually be a Metal Gear Solid 3 reference. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't play Metal Gear Solid 3, so not sure about that one. And finally, just in case you didn't know, one real DVD he has is 20 Minutes of Love. I say real, I'm not sure you can actually buy this. This is Charlie Chaplin's first movie. There we go, that's Heartman and his lab. A fascinating character, constantly in search of his family, dying every 21 minutes to go to beaches to search for them. And I often wondered, did they pick 21 minutes because of the 21 grams experiment, which was a study published in the early 1900s by a physician that hypothesized that souls have a physical weight, and that physical weight is 21.3 grams. He spends 21 minutes alive and 3 minutes dead searching on the beach over and over again. Did you spot any more Easter eggs around Heartman's lab? Let me know. So we touched on the importance of children in Death Stranding back in chapter 19, and I'm going to discuss that motif in more detail now, including some fun things about BB and Sam and all that kind of stuff. Of course, I'm pretty sure everybody knows that BB blows little heart bubbles, right?
It's all good, it's all good.
But I think a more important bit of information is, in case any of you didn't watch it to the end of the credits, check this out. Lou is a girl. Of course, everybody in the game, including Sam, until she was removed from the pod, was unaware of this.
Louise.
And what's more, she's a massive thrill seeker. She loves it when you drive fast, you do stunts, and she loves a good go on the zipline. Check out BB clapping here while you're on the zipline. If you've never actually turned the camera around whilst on the zipline, you might have missed this. Nice little touch. There's a period in the game where you don't have Lou for a while, because like any good piece of hardware, to keep it running flawlessly, it needs to be recalibrated from time to time. And Deadman does that for us.
Looking for this? Surprise! Fragile warped me here. I finally got to visit the beach. Well, her beach. Don't worry, I didn't come all this way for the sightseeing. Your beloved BB has a serious issue.
He actually gets quite attached to BB during this period of time, which is no surprise, cute out, but yeah, does return Lou. Eventually, begrudgingly perhaps. It's funny, when I first started playing the game, I thought, what the hell, we've basically got an artificial womb on our chest with a child in it. This is the most bonkers thing ever. At the end, it's completely normalized to me, and that's just the genius of these games. They're just completely normalized things that are otherwise absolutely bonkers. But anyway, where was I? Yeah, the period of time where you don't have Lou. Every now and then, Sam will forget that Lou's not there and talk to Lou. I think it's a nice touch.
Stay out there, Lou. You alright?
And then occasionally he talks to Lou, saying how much he misses Lou.
I need to sing without you, kid.
I thought that was a really nice touch, nice detail. It's pretty apparent that a lot of main characters, take Deadman for example, in this version of the future, don't really get the connection the parents have with children. And he really does treat it as a piece of equipment until he spends some time with Lou and has that time to bond, and ultimately is very reluctant to return Lou to Sam, which was fully expected but quite interesting. Children are our future, and babies and children are a massive theme running through this, along with our extinction. And I think a lot of it falls on the evolution of humanity in order to survive a next extinction, so dooms and BBs and repatriates and things like that. And there's a lot of parenting things going on with caring for children and surrogate children. For example, Sam's wife dies when she is pregnant with their unborn child, and BB fills void in Sam for that lost child, and it turns out he names the BB Louise after his own child who he never got to meet. It's all very deep and touching stuff. You have the mountaineer's wife who is pregnant and badly sick, and you get the medication to them in time, and she names her child after you. The junk dealer and the chiral artist look set to start a family. You have what happens with Mama and what she tries to do for her sister Lochne. There's a lot about that stuff, because that is what a species that has been nearly wiped out and is facing extinction needs to do. Make babies and come together as a species. Are you listening, giant pandas? You know what you gotta do. In case it didn't click with anyone, the reason when Sam is repatriating, we see BB inside of Sam, is that Sam is a BB. He is the BB that Cliff is looking for the whole time. So to reiterate, this is not Lou, this is Sam. This is Sam's inner child, his inner BB. This is him. There you go. This one here we see in the flashbacks is Sam. And yes, just in case you missed it, sometimes little Sam is showing you his arse, and I don't know why, but yeah, I'm not including the footage of it for obvious reasons. How did Sam get that scar on his stomach, you might wonder, if you haven't completed the game? Well, he got it because he was shot by Bridget, who was also Amelie, when he was a BB, Cliff's BB, when they were trying to take the BB away from Cliff. Cliff took the BB out of the pod, and they shot Cliff, accidentally shooting BB.
Not BB too.
Sam BB, not Lou BB, because that's Sam. Amelie/Bridget was racked with guilt and found him on his beach, sewed up his tummy, and repatriated him, creating the first repatriate and triggering the last stranding. Bridget raised him as his own, and that's probably clear as mud, so I'll go over that whole thing when I'm explaining Amelie and the whole story. I'll leave that to the end though, because it's a bit of a long one. How to make BB dance? Well, you just whistle to BB. A nice clue that Sam is in fact the BB that Cliff Unger is looking for is the whistling. The tune that you whistle to BB the entire game, when you choose to whistle to BB, is the tune that Cliff Unger whistles to you when you were a baby, or his BB. This is the exact moment when Cliff realizes that Lou, the BB you're carrying, is not his baby, but in fact Sam is.
Father. They told me your name was Sam Porter. When you were Sam Bridges. My bridge to the future.
This is why the doll associated with Cliff is the one with the cross on his tummy, because that's his BB that was shot, you. And what's also interesting, and I'd forgotten it, and it was only when I reviewed the footage that I saw it again, is Clifford Unger also has this same scar that you have, implying this is where he got shot, but also suggesting his connection to Sam. Interestingly, Higgs inside his BB pod doesn't actually have a BB. He also has one of these dolls because Amelie gave him the doll as a kind of talisman to connect him to her beach, and of course she is connected to that same doll with the cross on the stomach because she's the one that fixed his bullet wound and raised him both on Earth and on the beach at the same time. However, we're only told this by Fragile, and as we know from the trailer of Death Stranding 2, she's not completely straight up with us. We never see Fragile remove this from the BB pod, she just shows it to us and says that's where it came from. Although it does make sense that the Homo Daemons wouldn't have actual babies in their BB pods, but this sure as heck looks like a baby and not like a doll. And Higgs is connected to Coffin, which I'll discuss in a bit, so it is always possible that we don't know the full truth about what Coffin's group did with regards to the BBs in the facility that they liberated. We might in the next game find out that they actually kept BBs and they supplied BBs to the Homo Daemons, and we know that Fragile is also connected to Higgs in a very complicated way. We'll have to wait and see anyway. Again, I'll talk about that in just a minute. And for the purpose of this video, we'll continue to operate based on the information it's given us. Because even Die Hardman lets us know that he's been given one of these dolls in order to connect to Amelie's beach. So it's definitely her thing. So Higgs doesn't require a BB to connect to the other side and detect BTs because he already had this ability, which Amelie amplified by channeling her power through him. So it's just a symbolic BB that not only binds her, but also actually represents the child that she cared for and raised, her son, or should I say foster son, because Sam isn't her actual son. She's bound to him in a much more confusing way as a kind of guardian and dependent at the same time because she knows he's the only one that's going to be able to stop her. So Higgs is like her surrogate son, helping her do what her actual son wouldn't do for her until Bridget died and Sam eventually agreed to help her, in which case she didn't need Higgs anymore, which is why you have this antagonistic behavior from Higgs as he's being kind of cut off from quote-unquote super mommy. This stuff is so fascinating and it makes so much sense in my head, but I kind of feel like the words that are coming out of my mouth will do nothing to help unconfuse anybody who is confused. So like I said, I'll try and explain it fully at the end, step by step to clear it up. Speaking of Higgs, I always suspected he wasn't going to be dead because he was killed off screen, and whenever a bad guy, especially one as entertaining as Troy Baker's portrayal of Higgs, is shot off screen, not shot, he's coming back. And as we see in the trailer for the sequel, he turns up as crazy and theatrical as ever. I can't wait to drink in his performances once more. That's not to say that any trailer should be believed in its entirety, and if this trailer is only showing a portion of what's in the game, then we're in for a wild ride. Okay, so just before we get into the final explanatory pieces where we discuss Higgs and Coffin and Sam and the whole story and Amelie, here's just a few light questions and theories, call them palate cleansers, before we embark on the meaty main course that is unpacking this whole story. So, did you know you can ignore the shower nightmare? Yeah, you just choose to go out the door and it won't occur, which is really weird, because if you look at it, it turns into the nightmare, so the nightmare is happening, and then Sam shakes himself awake. But if you choose to go out of the door, Sam just gets up and leaves. So if you ignore that nightmare, are you spending the rest of the game in that nightmare? Now, did anybody else spot these little mini void outs happening? They happened often while I was on zip lines, and I managed to finally capture one. Check this out. Look at that, I'll do it in slow motion. Something is voiding out in a very small way there. I wonder, is it a BT that's just kind of blipping out of existence? Did anyone else see that, and does anybody know what that is? Let me know down below, because I haven't been able to find an answer on that one yet. During the fights, the big boss fights with the capture BTs, when the tar and objects from the past float from the surface, I've never been quite sure what triggers these, but you get these little helpers pop up. Are they other players or are they other porters? I'm not sure, but someone called Unknown pops up and throws stuff at you to help you out. I mean, granted, on close inspection, he looks pretty much like a naked white Norman Reedus. I mean, super white, but yeah, I don't know. I have a bit of a theory that the beaches are located on our moon, or at least tied to the moon in some way, because they're not actually a physical space, I don't think. Reason for it is when Sam becomes a repatriate, we see the Luden spaceman again, and what looks like him being in space in some way. Or if not specifically the moon, somewhere in space. But still, the moon is a good shot, because one thing you have at a beach is a tide, and tides are created by moons. Without the moon, the human race wouldn't even be here. It's like it's attached to us by some kind of invisible strand or umbilical, just like a BT. And what if the collision that created the moon was the collision that deposited all the Bridgmanite on Earth and Chiralium with it? I mean, to me, this looks like we're viewing the Earth from the moon. And when Cliff is talking to you as the BB in the pod during the flashbacks, he speaks about the moon and how he'll take you to see the moon someday. And as an interesting aside, we never actually see the dark side of the moon because the moon is locked to us. So I have a feeling that the second game is going to see us a lot more in space, and I think the beaches are going to be tied to the moon in some way. And seeing how the sequel is called On the Beach, it's very plausible that beach might be an actual place that we get to visit. Maybe it's just the master beach is the moon or something. I'm probably way off with that one, but it should be interesting to see. And if you're watching this sometime after Death Stranding 2 has launched, have a good laugh about how wrong I was in the comments. But we'll have to wait and see. Not long now. What do you think? I wonder, is this scene, because if you look at the doll, this isn't one of the ones with the crosses on the tummy, that this is supposed to be symbolic of him letting go of his past and embracing his future. What do you think? And this is one last question. I haven't found anybody to corroborate this. I have a feeling that the Cupid's design was not by accident a necklace. I think it was based on, because this is the only reference I can find to it, a reference to Daryl Dixon in The Walking Dead, Norman Reedus' character.
What the hell happened? Look, he's wearing ears.
And the ears are ears of the undead in The Walking Dead, so the zombies. And the Cupid is a communications device. It connects up the strands. It brings the different bunkers online. So it's all about communication, and ears are one of our most basic tools of communication. Anyway, I have no way of corroborating whether or not that's just my messed up mind making massive leaps, but I wanted to put it out there. So let's talk about Higgs. Fragile. And Coffin. Coffin is Fragile's biological mother and Higgs's adoptive mother, or kind of adoptive anyway. Starting with Coffin. Coffin was an independent porter. Sometime after the Death Stranding, she had a child with her husband, who's unnamed at this time, and they named that child Fragile, the same name that they named their company. It was not too long after Fragile's birth that Coffin, along with some other porters, discovered that some of the packages they had been delivering for Bridges were part of the BB project, and in some cases actual live children. Upon finding out that these children would serve as bridges to the other side and possibly die in order to further the development of the BB project, She, along with other porters, abandoned their current occupation, went into hiding and formed an extremist group, with their one sole goal to put an end to the BB project. Aware that these new goals would put both her husband and her daughter in danger, she left them in order to protect them, leaving Fragile's father to raise Fragile. It was at this point she took up the name of Coffin, and Fragile grew up estranged from her mother. In their travels, Coffin's extremist group recruited and trained porters so they could fight against Bridges and ultimately take down the BB facilities and end the project altogether. It was around this time she met Peter, or Higgs, as we know him by, a promising young porter who had, unbeknownst to her, killed his father, that she took under her wing and to all intents and purposes adopted as a son. He already had a strong ability to sense BTs, and although there was also a darkness that she sensed within him, it made him an excellent porter, an addition to the team. And together they fought against Bridges, and after several successful missions, they found the final BB facility in the eastern region, the one that we come across, the ruined factory as it's pitched to us initially. But on infiltrating that facility, UCA decided to take drastic action and destroyed the entire facility, bringing down Coffin and her team. However, Coffin and a few of her team did survive, along with one liberated BB that apparently lived till adulthood. But knowing Kojima and his twists and turns, maybe that BB actually didn't die off, and we're going to get to meet that BB sometime in the next couple of games. But anyway, they all got chiralium poisoning and developed cancers and died. Coffin was the last to die, and she buried all her team and the babies, and that's the grave that we see up at the top of the facility being watched over by the only white BT in the game, which we believe is Coffin. Higgs wasn't there at the time and was spared, and whether he received the message or not to keep the flame burning, he did exactly that, eventually becoming the Homo Daemons terrorist group, which was nothing like that which his mother set out to create. This is the message she leaves to her beloved adopted son that we listen to here.
Cancer. Terminal. If you come too late to see me off, don't go carving me a headstone. Take it out on the bastards who built this place. I need you to deliver a message to the best and most fragile part of me that I pray lives on. I'm sorry. I did everything I could, and it wasn't enough. But I had to try, even if it meant leaving you, even if it meant robbing you of the mother you deserved. Don't suppose you're wearing the other Masaga now, are you? I think of you every day. If nothing else, I hope you believe that. I never stopped loving you, and I never will. Peter, you and my girl can lead the way. You can make a better world together. You can do it. You're a fighter, and a damn good one at that. I should know. Trust in each other. Trust in your methods. Trust in your vision of America. And please, keep my little girl close. Keep my Fragile safe. It's only right. You're like a son to me, which makes you her brother.
And as we know, whilst he certainly did keep her close, he did not keep her safe. So it's unclear whether or not he ever saw this, but given the way he treats Fragile in the game, it's very unlikely he saw this or joined the dots and realized this was his adopted sister. Or, you know, he was just a vengeful, evil psychopath. It's also unclear whether or not Fragile knew who he was. Because she was estranged from her mother, it's very unlikely that she would have known, at least at the start, that Higgs was her adopted stepbrother. But having joined Bridges at the end, it's all very possible that she found out the truth, and that could be why she might have spared him. It could be why she was so insistent on letting her be the one to kill him. The fact that she was going to spare him, or the fact that she had such hatred towards him for what he'd done and his connection to her mother, that she wanted that vengeance herself. But obviously, we know she didn't take the vengeance. But then that could come down to the fact that it's much more likely that he would know who she is. When he was told to take care of her, he actually used her. It's much more manipulative, and it would be pretty much on brand for Higgs. Either way, it's going to be unpacked in the second game, no doubt, but it explains why that he was killed off screen, because perhaps he said, I know your mother and can tell you about her if you spare me, something like that. And if I was a betting man, that's where I put my money. Check out what he says here.
This time you're the one who's going to break.
Is that right? I think you'll find our bond is made of stronger stuff.
Anyway, regardless as to what the truth is, it's a very complex relationship between the two of them, and hopefully we're going to see that unpacked a little bit more. And just as a little aside while we're in this facility, if you look here on the desk, you can see a photo of Fragile. I don't know if both the photos are of her. She didn't know her as a child, so this could be the female BB that they rescued as well. I'm not 100% sure. I think the one on the right is Fragile though. Just like hours in the day, we've reached our final chapter. So let's straighten up the most confusing element of this whole game. Amelie. For anyone that's at the end of this and still not sure what the hell I was talking about when it came to Amelie, let's try and clear that up a bit before I let you go. Bridget and Amelie are the same person. One is the Ha and the other is the Ka. Bridget is the body and Amelie is the soul, living permanently unaging on the beach. It's why when we see Bridget in the early scene, she has a mask on. It's so that she looks different enough that that reveal isn't broken straight away. It's only towards the end when we actually get to see Bridget on the beach that's connected to Amelie's beach that you see that they are completely identical. They have a very unique co-joined beach where she's existing in it as multiple entities, it seems like. Her full name is Samantha Strand, or Samantha America Strand, but she's mainly known as Amelie. And as we find out, the truth is in the name.
Amelie. Is French for soul. A soul that's a lie.
Now, Bridget/Amelie is the sixth extinction entity. Just like the prehistoric man and the whale, these different entities are chosen ones by the Death Stranding at certain periods in the Earth's history to be the harbinger of a great reset extinction, and this time it was Bridget. In her early 20s, Bridget developed uterine cancer, which she later blamed as punishment from the beach for not acting as an extinction entity or not even knowing that she was one. It was during her surgery that the Ha and the Ka separated, with her Ka waking up on the beach. Strangely, unlike other circumstances, for example Mama, where she was separated from her Ka, Bridget and Amelie were aware of each other, and they worked together to try and fight the final extinction, initially, using all the data they could get from the biological archive of the beach, which was an infinite wealth of information that gave them all the knowledge they needed to come up with the chiral network. It was when Bridget was old enough that she looked different enough from Amelie so that they could pass as mother and daughter that she stopped wearing the mask, and Heartman adopted that mask. And this is when Bridget properly introduced people to Amelie. The story Bridget fabricated to get everyone to accept Amelie was that she presented that her daughter was born with what's called locked-in syndrome, which is a condition that causes you to be conscious in your body but unable to control it, permanently paralyzed and unable to speak. However, her cat was free on the beach, so as a result she was hospitalized for her entire childhood. And it was then thanks to her unprecedented level of dooms that she was able to travel to and from the beach when they fully manifested in her 20s, which is how old Bridget was when she separated. This enabled her to come out from the shadows and interact with people publicly as Amelie, whilst quote-unquote traveling to and from the beach at will, which is where she ended up spending the majority of her time. When she did visit people, it was via holographic projection, so nobody ever actually got to meet the real Amelie in person, because she was on the beach. Just like Sam, Bridget/Amelie had nightmares about the Death Stranding, such as the nature of dooms, and knowing what was coming, they wanted to do everything they could to stall it for humanity. And along with the chiral network, the Bridge Baby program was all part of this endeavor. And one of the first participants of this was Clifford Unger's wife, Lisa Unger, born Lisa Bridges, Sam's mother, who, again, mirroring Mama, there's a lot of parallels that run through this game, was involved in an accident whilst pregnant with Sam, which rendered her brain dead and the perfect candidate as a still mother for the Bridge Baby experiments. Now, this is when, as we touched on earlier, Sam comes into the frame, because when Clifford Unger discovers what they're planning to do with Sam, or BB as he refers to him at that time, he gets cold feet and he decides to let his wife go and ends her life and tries to escape with Sam. But he's unsuccessful in his attempts to get away, and in a last-ditch effort to save his unborn child, he frees Sam from his pod. And it is at this very moment that Bridget orders John McClane to execute Cliff. But he refuses because Cliff was his former commander, and Bridget takes the gun in her own hands and shoots Cliff, shooting and killing BB in the process. Racked with guilt, Amelie locates Sam on his beach as a baby, heals his wound, and revives him, sending his soul back to his body, creating the first repatriate in the process. As you probably remember, I went into a lot more detail about this in chapter 21 when talking about Sam's scar. However, in doing so, she moved her beach much closer to everyone else's, upsetting the balance of life and death. And this was what triggered the Death Stranding. Once revived back in the living world, Bridget raised Sam as her own child, where he had a very confusing relationship with Amelie being his adopted sister, much older sister who never ages, as he only ever meets her on the beach and in dreams, I suppose. Sam also became a sufferer of dooms, and he had nightmares. He would find himself repeatedly stranded on the beach, unable to find his way out, but Amelie would always be there to comfort him in such moments, so she was a constant influence in his life growing up. He even fashioned a necklace, or the kipu, for her, which gave them a connection and cemented their bond. However, later on in life, when Sam's wife committed suicide, triggering a massive void out, Sam left Bridges and Amelie lost her only true contact to the living world. Later, she would temporarily replace him with Higgs, which we talked about earlier, as he also would come and visit her on the beach. Meanwhile, in Sam's absence, Bridget and Amelie tried to create a chiral network across the United States of America by heading west, but when they reached Edge Knot City, the entire team was wiped out. All except for Amelie, because even though she was leading the team, she was never physically with them. So, in order to explain this anomaly, Amelie was quote-unquote captured and held within the city by the separatist leader, Higgs. But as we know, of course, this was all a fabrication. Higgs couldn't find her either and wanted to locate her, not having the full picture himself and having only ever met her on the beach. Higgs was only ever a pawn, and he both fought Sam out of jealousy and used Sam to try and locate Amelie, because he didn't know she only existed on the beach as well, and he also didn't know it was her that was giving him all his powers. She was just using him in place of Sam, who she'd lost connection with. She even gave him a fake bridge baby, one of the ones with the scars on the stomach, as a physical item that tied him to her beach and allowed him to control BTs. When in fact it didn't actually help him, he was just doing that by the powers she had given him. Realizing that the sixth extinction was inevitable and all they could do was delay it, she was using him to help usher it in and, I guess, end things. Which he happily did, reveling in the powers she gave him. Playing the part of the daughter who's inheriting her mother's presidency, the fact of the matter is she's just the same person continuing on, all the while using Sam and the rest of Bridges to create a chiral network that she needs to help usher in the Death Stranding. Higgs, only knowing part of the plan, attacks Sam regularly. That's one of the great things about this game. So many characters are in the dark as well, and they're acting on misinformation themselves. As it unfolds, it all makes for a very interesting plot with lots of twists. The whole time, Higgs wants to find Amelie, and he's using you to find her because of his jealousy, and it's only then that he finds out she's just this entity on the beach, at which point he thinks he is one and he's the boss, the one to use her to usher in the final extinction. Quite a power trip. But then when you finally defeat him and she's done playing possum, she takes his powers away just like that. What is unclear is just how much she might have given him too much power, as in the final fight it does seem like you have to defeat Higgs to free Amelie, but is this all just part of her plan to bring Sam on side, and you, as Sam, are presented as the victor rescuing Amelie? The reason that she puts such an emphasis on Sam connecting up the chiral network throughout the game is that giving it more strands and connecting up makes it strong enough that Amelie can connect her beach to all beaches and trigger the last stranding. Her beach is like the ultimate master beach. Once connected, the last stranding is triggered. And it's my understanding that the last Stranding or the last Extinction is basically a shortcut to the absolute final end of things, the permanent destruction of all living things, stopping the cycle, which is only possible when all beaches are brought together like that. In the final moments where the last Stranding is triggering, you're given a gun, and it just so happens is one gun that you see all the time is the same gun that was used to kill his mother, his father, and to kill him. And in the end, you are handed it, and it's proposed that you can end things by shooting her. However, it is a false choice. You can't actually shoot her to sever her connection to the beach. The one gun that did so much to set everything in motion can do nothing to stop it. But what you can do is you can go up to her and give her a good old hug and let her know that you're always going to be there as she has been there for you, or Sam. If you just watch the ending, then existence as we know it winks out. But if you walk up to her, giving her the reassurance that you're still there for her, she chooses to remain on the beach despite having been there for an agonizingly long and lonely time. Sam gives her the strength to continue on. When all is said and done, it is her fate to usher in the last Stranding. And that could take multiple lifespans, and it's on the verge of happening right now, but through your compassion, she agrees to spare humanity the last extinction for the moment at least, or at least delay it to give them chance to evolve into something that could survive through such an extinction. By evolving into our next stage with things like dooms and repatriation and things like that, I suppose. Like cockroaches, or spiders, or whatever have passed through the previous extinctions. And that is why we get a Death Stranding 2. Now granted, this isn't a fully comprehensive list of every single story beat in the game, but it should be the cipher that lets you unlock and explain all the other bits, and suddenly things just completely slot into place once you fully understand these specific beats. There are probably plenty of videos out there that go through the entire story and explain all the different beats, and if you're still confused, I definitely recommend going and checking some of them out because it is a fantastic story. And there you go. But listen, one last question before I let you all go. Who do you think the 5 are? We see them at the very start and we see them towards the end, and at the end when Sam sees them they turn into your 5 friends or your 5 companions. But if you look closely, one of them looks like Sam holding BB and the other ones just look like maybe Sam. They look like nondescript grey entities that only manifest themselves as your friends later on. I think the working theory is that they are a symbolic representation of the 5 previous extinctions keeping watch on both Sam and Amelie. It's never really confirmed, but what do you think? I hope we're going to find out more about them in the sequel, or perhaps it's just going to be left as a question, open for interpretation like all good works of art and fiction. Clear as mud, right? Jesus, it's hard to even say, let alone understand, but having played it, you should kind of get a grasp of it. There you go, that's everything. I won't keep you past this because it's been long enough. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this. Take care, folks. See you in my next video. Bye. If you stay to the end here, have a gold star or 12D. Meow.